Hey, welcome to the Summit Host Hangout podcast, where you'll learn how to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit. No influencer status necessary. I'm your host, Krista from Summit in a Box, and today in episode 140, I am so excited to bring in a special guest to talk about how to run a profitable virtual summit without paid ads. She also hosted a summit with the topic of community, which isn't one that I would usually expect to be like overly profitable, but it was. So we're going to dive into that a little bit too, because she did such an incredible job. To give you some background information on our guest, she's the owner and creative director of Harmony Creative Studio, an award-winning boutique wedding firm in Los Angeles. She serves as a wedding business educator. She's a frequent podcast guest and motivational speaker, and she hosts the twice yearly online summit for wedding professionals, the Wedding Summit Series. I am lucky enough to have her as a student in Summit in a Box, which has given me the honor of getting to know her a little better and just seeing her incredible event come to life. So without further ado, let's dive in and talk with Margaux Fraise. Welcome, Margaux. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. I'm the one that's really excited because I got to be honest with you, I'm a longtime listener of your podcast. If we're getting right into the realness, the podcast was what I needed to realize that I needed Summit in a Box to help me with my summit journey. So this is very meta for me to now be on the podcast talking about my summit. So I'm really excited to be here.
I love that. That's always so fun to listen to. And like, seriously, I love the episodes where I can bring on people who started from listening and like just went out and have done awesome things with summits. It's so much fun. Before we dive into a little bit of your summit history and the good strategy we're going to dive into, tell us a little bit about you and the summit side of your business. What does that look like?
Right. I'm not just an online entrepreneur. I'm a wedding planner. I own a wedding planning business. It's a boutique wedding planning business, which usually means we do between 20 and 25 weddings per year. About 3 years ago, I started to pre-pandemic pivot, as I like to call it. I started to pivot before the pandemic. I started to realize that I was 40 years old. I'm now 41 and 3/4. But like when I was 40, I said to myself, I don't know if I want to be on my feet all day at weddings. Weddings are very hard, laborious days. Like people think of J-Lo, and that's not really what it's like. I laugh when I watch that movie and her heels and her tight suit. I'm like, oh dear. So I started to realize I don't know if I want to be doing this full time on my feet 10 years from now. So I better start making a plan. So I have this weird thing with my business. My business has been around for 10 years, but 4 years into that, I was suddenly diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. So I had to take, in 2014, I had to take 2 years off of my business. Wow. Because I was going through chemo and surgeries and a whole bunch of stuff. I'm fine now. Sometimes I miss that part and people have questions. Everything's fine. 5 years of clean scans. It's all fine. But I kind of had that pre-pandemic, everyone had a forced vacation or forced hiatus or forced firing or whatever it was in your particular situation from their business in 2020. I had already done that in 2014. So I actually started to talk at conferences for wedding professionals and other, networking events about my experience, about how wedding professionals can prepare their business for the unexpected. And if we're being very honest, it was not a super popular topic before 2020. And then every single person wanted me to do a webinar for their wedding networking group about preparing your business. So that's how I kind of got into the speaking side of it, which led to, me finding the online education space. So I have some courses for wedding professionals. And when 2020 came along, there were no weddings. I mean, the wedding and event industry was the first one to go down in flames, right? And I thought about how I could fill up my time because in August of 2020, I realized that most of my couples from 2020 were going to be on their second postponement, and we weren't going to be doing anything until February or March of 2020. And I was like, I got to fill up this time. And that's when I found your summit about summits. This is the selling with a summit for course creators, I think it was, because I've been going to a lot of these online summits, but then I found the summit about summits and it was very meta and it really piqued my attention. And then I found your podcast and I was like, I could do a summit. There was another person doing summits for wedding professionals, Heidi Thompson. She's also a student of Summit in the Box, but she was speaking on sales and she was speaking on something very specific. And I said, what if I do a summit that's like a different topic every time? Like that would be really cool, right? Because there are things that people want to learn about. But I wanted to kind of focus on what people needed right in the moment. And what people needed right in that moment was the thing that had saved my business when I had to take 2 years off, which was leaning into their community. So that's how I came up with the first topic for the Wedding Summit series, which was all about community. And people think that's a weird topic, right? You just said, you're like, I don't know if I've ever heard of someone doing a topic on community and actually making money. But what I did was I broke down community into things that people could relate to making money, right? Like the first day was all about networking. That's community-based. The wedding industry is very much all about networking. And then Tuesday was referrals. Wednesday was about building community. Thursday was about making a connection on social media. Friday was about partnerships. So I broke it down in a way where people could think about community in a way that would serve their business and end up making them more money. Because I knew that it had worked. Because if I was really honest with myself, before I had to take a step back from my business with cancer, I was one of those people in the wedding industry. And it's probably relevant amongst a lot of industries, especially with women, where I was like, I don't want anyone to know my business. I don't know why. I don't want them to know what I'm charging. I don't want to like whatever. And that doesn't really work. It only goes so far. And then when I came back into my business, I was like, I'm going to change this. I set about making friends that were other planners. So now some of my best friends in life are actually other wedding planners. I joined some associations. I started going to networking events more and more. And it was the thing that turned my business around after I literally had to take 2 years off. So I knew that community was a valuable topic, but some people, a lot of people don't know how to go about it. You have to make it make sense to people that you have to equate that to making more money. Yeah. It's weird.
No, you did such a good job with that. And I remember when you said you were going to do it around community, I was like, okay.
You weren't the only one.
Let's look at this a little bit. But you did it perfectly. You looked at what your people needed, and that is what they needed. It doesn't matter if that usually works or not. That's what they needed. And that is what I want everybody to do when you are choosing your summit topic. What do your people need? And you just did such an incredible job with that. So yeah, and I think we kind of covered, I was going to ask like, what made you decide to run a summit? But I feel like, you kind of talked about it. Was there anything you feel like you missed, and what made you make that decision?
I was also lonely. I got to be honest. Like it's August of 2020. I'm sitting around. I haven't seen anybody I know in person except my husband, because we've both been working from home. I mean, I was doing the online course side of my business, but I hadn't seen anyone. I myself was longing for some community, for some touch points. I mean, again, virtual summits, they're online and people have been doing a lot of Zoom and stuff. So it was me trying to think about like adding in some live elements. So I actually ended up having like 3 to 4 live panels or sessions per day, which I don't recommend for your summit host sanity's sakes. Yes. But my attendees really loved it. So it was all about finding that, community and connection in a summit. And it was partly because I was also longing for community. So I figured if I was longing for community, then a lot of other people were also.
Heck yeah. I love that. So tell us about the first summit. What was your experience with it? How did it go? All that good stuff.
I loved it. And I know I just said that I wouldn't do 3 to 4 live sessions again. But again, the attendees seemed to really like it. So I followed pretty much the Summit in a Box model. Before times, I have a part-time assistant that works in the office like 10 to 20 hours a week. She has not been here for the last year and a half. So it was just me. And then I found a great virtual assistant company that was helping me with like the back end of like the Zoom meetings and some other things. But for the most part, it was just me. So I didn't want to break too far from like your core teachings in Summit in a Box because I bought Summit in a Box. So because I'm always telling people, hire a professional, get what you need, pay other people. Like, and I was like, I should probably do that because I don't know how to run an online summit. So I didn't stray too far from what you teach. The summit was 5 days, which was ambitious for a first-time summit host. I understand that, but I am a true extrovert. I have a lot of energy. So I took that into consideration. I did not feel drained. What I did feel like was that my voice hurt the last 2 days because I had been talking so much, because I was the moderator for most of the panels, which is something I probably won't do again. We'll have live sessions for the next one, but they probably won't be all panels and me moderating.
Yeah.
Like I said, I broke down each day into subtopics, which people really enjoyed. What I thought was going to be the most popular was the tech and social connection. So I put that on the 4th day to try to like, you know, whatever. It semi-worked. We did have drop off from day to day to day, but then Thursday it went back up with that. We had 4 to 5 recorded presentations every day. We had the panels. I had our all access pass, which was our upgraded product, which had 2 additional VIP panels, which were the most requested topics. Nice. So I put those behind the paywall. And then we also had 2 networking events because it was all about community. And those also lived behind the all access paywall. Again, because it was my first summit, I didn't go too crazy. I just had 1 all access pass product and I followed your system and I did deadline funnel and all of that. And it worked out really well. The summit was more profitable than I thought it would be. I hit all of my top goals.
Yes, I love it. You seriously did such an incredible job with it. You know, I've heard some people in the wedding space talk about it and they love the heck out of it. So like that is like our goal, you know, when with that first event, your goal, like, yeah, we want to make some money. And I know you like made more than some money. You did great. But if people are happy and they want us to do it again, and we made the impact we wanted to make, like, that is our primary concern. And you definitely did that. And it was so fun to watch. And I can't wait for the next one because it's just awesome to see good summits happen. So thank you so much for sharing about that. Yeah, I just love hearing it. So let's shift and dive into the advertising side of things, because you hosted a very profitable summit without ads, right? You had no paid advertising. Is that correct?
No paid ads. I couldn't do a Facebook ad if you paid me. I literally don't know how to do it. The wedding world, I have made my core business, my wedding planning business, really without ads. I am in like 2 listings on blogs that speak to my core client, but I don't pay for listings on the big sites, you know, the big aggregator sites. I don't pay for Facebook ads or Instagram. Like, I just don't. So I've never really like dove deep into how to do that. So I would have had to pay someone. It would have really upped my costs, you know, and it would have cut into stuff because I know that a lot of people spend a lot of money on ads. So when I was thinking about the fact that I didn't want to spend the time and the money and the headache to try to learn how to do ads specifically for this summit, I was trying to think about other ways to bring in a lot of people. And thankfully, the wedding industry specifically is something that is pretty small. It's a large industry. It involves, I think the US government found out the hard way exactly how many people were involved in the wedding industry when we all could not work by government order. They found out how big our industry is. But it's also small. People talk. Everyone knows each other. We go to these conferences, you know, all this stuff. So when I was thinking about how to do it without ads, the very first thing that I knew that I wanted was that I wanted to reach out to some of the more known speakers and educators in our industry. So I did a lot of research. I cannot stress the importance enough of doing tons of research and finding the people that have larger audiences. I did what you suggest. I never asked anyone what their email list size was. I never asked them, you know, these questions. I never required them to have any certain list. But I knew from my experience in our industry that certain educators had been around for a long time. They must have giant lists based on what they were doing. Like, it's just a given, you know? So for the couple months leading up to when I was thinking about my summit, I tried to, connect with these people on Clubhouse. I tried to follow them on social. I knew some of them briefly from conferences or what have you, but I tried to make a connection. And then I got a lot of speakers that I didn't think I was going to get. And people who couldn't do the time to speak, I asked them to be on panels so that they would still note it in their email that they were sending out to their huge list, but they didn't have to go through the whole rigmarole of speaking. So that was one part. Was that I did a lot of research, got good speakers that I knew had big lists. Again, I didn't require it. The second thing was that I went through a lot of effort to engage those speakers at a very high level. I made tons of content, tons of email copy. I think I used every email copy thing that was in Summit in a Box and then some more. I made tons of graphics, tons of personalized graphics, tons of fun graphics that people could use that were just like quotes or, that stuff on Canva that you find. And I engaged my speakers in our speaker Facebook group like 3 times a week. I made a running leaderboard that I would talk about because I was trying to get them all to actually promote. And we did have a couple that didn't. You always will. But I think on a whole, a lot of people were talking about the summit, and the wedding industry is small. So everybody knew about it. So those were the first 2 pieces. But then the third piece is, I think, where I really want to give myself some props on the back, a little pat on the back, because I said, who has the biggest reach in my industry? And if I was being honest, it was the wedding and event associations. We have associations that you can join, professional associations, WIPA, the Wedding International Professionals Association, NACE, the National Association for Catering and Events. We have these associations. And I was thinking that people would want to know about these associations because they were helping to educate and lobby and do all sorts of things during the pandemic. So I put out feelers in different Facebook groups and I said, are you a member of these associations? Do you want to learn about them? And I got a lot of data about what people were saying. And then I reached out to the organizations and I said, my summit attendees want to learn about your association. They want to know which association is a good fit for you, which was true. That's true. That's not a lie. And so I said, I'd love to each day of the summit have one association come and have a panel where they just talk about their association. I'll ask you guys all the same questions, and then people can learn about your association and find one that works for them. Does that something feel like you'd like to do? And they all said, of course. The ones that actually got back to me, there were a couple that didn't have anyone working in the office and didn't get back to me at all. But the ones that got back to me were like, you're going to give us an hour in front of your summit attendees to just talk about our association. And all we have to do is send some emails. We don't have to pay you. It wasn't a paid sponsorship. I had paid sponsors, corporate sponsors, brands. But for these people, I was like, yes, it's just a kind of tit for tat thing, for lack of a better wording. And they have huge email lists. So I got 5 associations to have a panel each day. And then that upped my, the reach considerably. And so it was more about thinking a little bit outside of the box, but still things that you were talking about inside Summit in a Box, things that would be, great for the attendees. The attendees loved hearing about the associations. It was good for the associations. They got their message in front of the people, and it was good for me because they sent emails to their giant list. It was a win, win, win. And that, I think, took the place of reaching my exact ideal audience, wedding professionals, and then I didn't have to spend money on ads. So that's how I did it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. You don't need ads when you can pull in some of the biggest associations in the industry and get them to promote. And I love that. And if you're sitting here thinking, well, there aren't really associations in my niche, listen to what she said though. There are companies that market to people in your niche. You can do a sponsorship, and instead of money, they are sending emails. And it's the same idea, the same return. I kind of look at associations differently because I feel like they value more of the connection aspect and maybe have a place a little bit higher value on getting in front of people in this way. But still, the idea works. And I just love that it was a heck yes from them, right?
Yeah. And some of them had questions because they have bylaws, they have rules. Most of them could not participate in our affiliate program because it was against their bylaws. So they did have a lot of questions. So I did have to have a call with them, explain what I was doing. It was a new summit. So it was time intensive on my end, but I don't think it's any more time than I would have spent making ads, finding ads, writing copy for ads, checking the ads. Like, it's just not, it's correlative. So it's like industries may not have associations, but there are professional networking groups that cater to whatever it is that you're doing. It's just thinking about who outside of your speakers may have the reach to the exact people that you want to talk to. And then that cuts through all the ad BS straight to the people that you want to talk to. And so our next summit is actually on design. It's on wedding design because that was something people wanted to talk about. So it's no longer about community, right? But I'm going to be reaching back out to those associations who I have already made a connection with. And I'm going to say, I'm going to offer you guys a $20 off coupon because I'm going to raise my ticket price $20 because the first summit was introductory pricing. So I'm going to reach back out to those associations and say, if you'd like to let your members know about this, here's something you can say you're offering them, which is, a $20 off, coupon, in the hopes that they will continue to email to spread the word about my summit, even though it's not technically about community any longer. So that's my plan. We're going to see how that works out.
I love it.
Because I want to keep that large, pathway to my exact audience.
Yeah. Will you bring them back on to talk again? Or are you going to reach out to different associations? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it really worked out well with the community topic because it was like, find your community, find your association. With the design topic, it doesn't work as well. Plus, I had 4,200 people sign up for the ticket for my first summit, you guys. That's 4,200 people, 4,000 people.
For the first summit.
Now I have a built-in audience, and I now have like 800 people on the waiting list. How many of those are people that didn't listen to the fact that they didn't have to get on the waiting list? Because I'll figure that out. But so I do have a built-in audience now because it is my second summit, but I do want to keep those pathways open with the connections that I've already made. So I will be putting out the affiliate program to all of my past speakers. I'm having a couple of the past speakers speak again, but not all of them. I'm having like 4. So there's 20 speakers who won't be speaking again, but I'm going to ask some of them to be on a panel. I'm going to, they have the ability to make some affiliate dollars based on something they did in February, which I don't think a lot of them are going to pass up on because we're all still kind of rebuilding our income from 2020. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. I hope everybody is taking notes because even just in like the little comments you're making, like that piece right there and how you're leveraging those past speakers is pure gold. And that's another way you're going to be building this next summit without paid advertising. And it's
right. I'm not going to do paid ads again because again, I don't know how to do them.
Heck yeah. No, I am all for that. Like seriously, I am experienced with ads, but like for my last summit, I have an ads company that runs my ads. They are amazing, but our ads pretty much flopped for this summit. And if that's all I would have depended on, it would have been too darn bad, So like you have to have built-in things other than ads. And I love that you're just like, I don't need ads. I got this.
I was also pretty scared about the impending Facebook, Apple opt out, whatever. Like no one knew when that was going to drop. So that was kind of another thing where I was like, that's just another nail in the coffin of why I don't want to do ads right now because I've never done them. And what if all of a sudden they're just irrelevant? So I was trying to think of more genuine connection marketing. And to be honest with you, it worked out great for me because it turns out that all these associations are the people who, no one was flying me out to NACE Houston, to talk during the pandemic, but they will now because these people know who I am. So it actually even worked out on that level that I hadn't really thought about, is that now all of these people who are, high level in my industry and have a bunch of connections know my name and they know who I am. So that makes it easier for my speaking brand, for my educational brand. So it's just these, making true connection, which is something I really want people to, if they get nothing out of this podcast, like hear this part, making the true connections with other people in your industry, whether it's speakers, whether it's sponsors, whether it's, attendees. Those are the things that are going to continue to pay off. That's why I did a whole summit about community, because I know that that's true. Ads are ads. They're only going to be working as long as you're paying for them. Yep. And once you're not paying for them, it's not like Mark Zuckerberg remembers who you are. Like, that's not how it works. So, but the speakers of your summit will, your sponsors will, it just seemed like a much better outlay of my emotional bandwidth when I was trying to make this thing work. Mm-hmm. That was really the crux of it.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Connections over paying for success, basically. I love it.
And if you're out there and you pay for ads and it works for you, great. Maybe if that's kind of on autopilot for you, add this strategy on top and see if it can't put you into a new level. I'm not saying replace ads if it's working for you. If it works for you, great. It's just, I don't know how to work it for me. So that's all.
No, like I am seriously pumped for my next one, because I want to do this. There's one more thing that you very briefly mentioned that I just want to touch on a little bit, is you mentioned Clubhouse. And I remember when you were planning, you were telling me, I think it was in a Q&A call in Summit in a Box. You're like, I'm on Clubhouse every single day doing, this stuff for the summit. And I'm like, huh? I've never used Clubhouse. So talk to us a little bit about how you used it for the summit and connections and everything.
Full disclosure, Clubhouse was something that I was doing when my days were empty. And I think a lot of people were on Clubhouse and filling that connective void in their life through this new platform when it was really popular in like November, December, you have 2020, January of 2021. I'm not on it every day anymore. Mm-hmm. But at the time, it was like catching lightning in a bottle. So whenever I talked on stage, I mentioned the summit, we had like an after party on Clubhouse where we talked about what had happened at the summit that day. And while I don't think that I will do that for the next one, just because the attendance wasn't really the levels where I wanted it to be. And I know now, because overall user whatever of that app has gone down since everything's opened back up and people aren't just like sitting around their houses with nothing to do all day like I was. I will take that same thing and we're going to have an after party on Zoom that's kind of a co-working session. Like I'm thinking about ways to take what I thought worked and make it into something new. But at the time, Clubhouse was like, it was really like catching lightning in a bottle. So if you're still on Clubhouse and you're still using that, then definitely mention your summit, talk about your summit. Attendees who did come to those Clubhouse after parties loved it. But I did get a lot of pushback from people that were like, I'm not on Clubhouse and I wish a part of this summit was not on something that I can't access. Mm-hmm. So I did get a little of that. Yeah. So it was kind of both sidesism. So I probably won't integrate it as much going forward just because I am personally not using it as much. And I pulled now I'm using my summit Facebook group as like data mining to like poll and see what people want to do. And like people just aren't using it on a daily basis. So because of that, I don't think I'm going to integrate it again. But it worked at the time. It was very specific.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool though, that, that was hot then and you like put it to use. And I think that's perfect. Like do that no matter when you're listening, whatever the hot social media app is, leverage the heck out of it. But then, like you said, listen to your people. And I love that you're using that community and getting data and figuring what to change next time. Like that is my favorite.
Yeah, I've been asking them all sorts of questions like, would you rather have one call per day with the speakers where you can ask questions, or would you rather they pop into the Facebook group to do lives? I thought they would pick all together on a Zoom and have a Q&A, but they overwhelmingly picked the other one.
Wow.
So, and my summit Facebook group has over 1,000 people in it. So we did have a pretty good, we had about 25% of free ticket holders get into the Facebook group, which I thought was a good percentage, just because my own personal habits, I don't usually, even your summit that I loved and I got so much out of, and I bought your product and it was a whole thing, I was not in the Facebook group. So I was really excited when we had a lot of people in there, but I'm like trying to keep that connection, see what they want, because it's oftentimes not what I think. So I'm trying to use their feedback, and you do some data mining and polls in the group to give the people what they want, as it were.
Yes, that's how we do it. Oh my goodness. There's so much good, like I'm excited. So I hope everyone listening is excited too. Like I'm seriously like, when can I plan my next summit? Because I want to like integrate some of this stuff right now. So thank you so much for sharing all of this. So much gold dropped in this episode. Where can people go to learn more about you and stay connected?
I probably use Instagram the most. So that's probably the place where people can find me. My handle is @Harmony Creative. But that's about wedding stuff. So I don't know if that interests you. My summit is @Wedding Summit Series. If you want to see the graphics that I was using and how I'm kind of staying connected in the off season, that kind of stuff, it's @Wedding Summit Series.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming on today, Margaux.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. For show notes and resources mentioned, head to summitHostHangout.com/140. In the next episode, we'll be chatting about ways to repurpose content from a previous summit, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Now go out and take action to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit.